are investigating reports of patients seen here sleeping on mattresses placed on the floor, not being fed or changed regularly. The owner, Bob Dean Jr., spoke with our CBS affiliate, WWL.
We only had 5 deaths within the 6 days, with normally with 850 people, you'll have a couple a day. So we did really good on taking care of people.
There's no road left. 150 miles south where Ida came ashore in Grand Isle, Angela Ailman drove there with her friend to check on her home, recovering one cherished item.
The flag made it, y'all.
Northwest of New Orleans, frustration is growing in the small community of Killian.
Our biggest worry is that we're going to be forgotten.
Nancy and Bobby Aucoin have lived in this area for 16 years and say their community is desperate.
The little towns, the little places at the end that aren't in the metropolitan are the ones that are kind of last to get the resources.
All right, Rob, thank you. Meantime, in Louisiana, grim new fallout from Hurricane Ida. 4 nursing home patients have died, at least a dozen hospitalized after they were evacuated to a warehouse. Health inspectors say they were turned away when they tried to visit. Across the storm zone, so many still without power, scrambling for fuel, food, and other things. President Biden paying a visit, promising federal help. ABC's Elwin Lopez is there.
Tonight, growing anger and misery 5 days after Ida cut a path of destruction through parts of Louisiana and Mississippi. People still waiting in hours-long lines like these, searching for food, water, and gas in the blistering heat.
We need to be rescued right now. We need ice. We're barely surviving through this heat.
And tonight, the investigation into the treatment of more than 800 nursing home patients evacuated to this warehouse ahead of the storm. At least 4 of them have died. ABC News obtaining these disturbing images showing the crowded conditions inside, the most vulnerable and elderly sleeping on mattresses on the floor. One of the residents who was in there for 5 days describing what it was like.
It was terrible. The mattress was on the ground. It was horrible.
Her daughter says she was not allowed to visit her mother in the warehouse.
They didn't have any electricity, no air conditioning for a while, generator. I thought they were coming to a nursing home, that they were going to have nursing beds and they would have been taken care like they were in a nursing facility.
Investigators from the Louisiana Health Department saying they were denied access to the facility. Officials now working to find alternative places for the residents. The governor vowing a full investigation.
We will do everything that we can to make sure that our most vulnerable citizens are properly taken care of.
ABC News reached out to the owner of the nursing homes for comment, but so far have not heard back. He reportedly told local station WAFB that he believes they did a good job given the circumstances. Late today, President Biden touring the devastation, promising no community will be left behind.
It's just simply about saving lives and getting people back up and running. And we're in this together.
And in the face of so much destruction, communities pulling together, helping one another.
No power.
No power, no water.
No water. You're out here helping others.
That's what it's all about.
A glimmer of hope amid all the misery there. Elwin Lopez joins us from hard-hit La Plaza. And Elwin, you're learning more about when the power may be restored to parts of Louisiana?
That's right, Whit. Officials announcing today that power won't be back up and running in most of New Orleans until next Wednesday. But in some of the hardest hit areas like this one, it could take longer, possibly even weeks. Whit.
Not the news people were hoping to hear. Elwin, thank you. We move now to the pandemic. New questions tonight about booster shots and the rollout plan set to begin on September 20th. The FDA's advisory board will review Pfizer's data on September 17th, but Moderna's data, a few weeks behind Pfizer, submitted today. 206 million people have received at least 1 dose, 72% of everyone 12 years and older. And with 38 million people expected to travel this Labor Day weekend, the CDC now warning the unvaccinated to stay home. Here's ABC's Steve Osunsami.
Even the president's own top health officials are warning tonight that they aren't sure they can realistically meet his September 20th timeline. That's when President Biden was hoping to start widely delivering COVID-19 booster shots to Americans. But both the CDC and the FDA are saying they need more time to study the data from the makers of the vaccine. Moderna, for example, just finished turning in theirs today.
if the recommendation is needed to get an additional dose, we don't know which populations and we don't know when. 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, we don't have all of that data yet.
At the CDC tonight, they're also underlining their new holiday weekend travel warning for the estimated 38 million Americans trying to get away, saying that if you haven't yet gotten the vaccine, you should stay home.
First and foremost, if you are unvaccinated, we would recommend not traveling.
The numbers are keeping public health officials up at night. More than 1,000 Americans are now dying from COVID-19 each day, the worst we've seen in nearly 6 months. The wife of 47-year-old Carlos Chavez says he did not have to die. She says that the youth football coach from Southern California was unvaccinated because he was afraid of possible side effects from the drug.
He needs to get vaccinated. In my case, it saved my life. Unfortunately, my husband not being vaccinated, it cost him his life.
The number of children getting sick and needing to be hospitalized is also growing, and there are millions of children heading back to school next Tuesday. At 2 grade schools and a high school in Miami, students lost 3 of their favorite teachers. The local teachers union reports that all 3, including high school teacher Michael Thomas, were unvaccinated.
It just devastated me because he didn't get vaccinated, so it just broke something within me.
There's that important meeting at the FDA on booster shots on September 17th, just 3 days before the federal government is expected to widely roll out booster shots across America. The acting FDA chief says it feels like they're making a plan without all the data. Whit?
All right, Steve, thank you. Now to Texas tonight, Planned Parenthood pushing back against that new law that has halted the vast majority of abortions in the state, asking a court to temporarily block some potential lawsuit the measure allows. President Biden weighing in on that part of the law as well, saying that while he respects those who oppose abortion, the law encouraging individuals to sue doctors and other providers is pernicious.
It just seems, I know this sounds ridiculous, almost un-American, what we're talking about. I was told that there are possibilities within the existing law to have the Justice Department look and see whether there are things that can be done.
ABC's Rachel Scott joins us now from Houston. And Rachel, is there really anything the White House can do now in the face of this state law?
Well, with the Biden administration appears to be looking for every possible avenue to be able to challenge this. We know this morning White House lawyers met with advocates, but at this point their options are limited. And you said it, Planned Parenthood has now filed a request for a temporary restraining order seeking to prevent an anti-abortion rights organization in Texas from suing its doctors and healthcare workers. Tonight, the fate of that request is still in question, but I can tell you what the reality is setting in here in Texas. We just spoke to a healthcare worker in the clinic behind me. She says their call center has now turned into a crisis hotline. She says since this law has taken effect, she has had to turn away 70% of the women that she has spoken to. Whit?
And other states watching this all very closely. Rachel Scott for us, thank you. Job
Public school.
Operation on 2 years after the commission's report. If we took the team's records from Operation Encore,
Right.
what would the public learn?
A lot. A lot.
Would it change our understanding of 9/11?
Sure. Yes.
Successive presidents have kept Operation Encore secret, citing national security. Brett Eagleson says the executive order is a critical first step, but he remains skeptical. 2 decades after the attacks, Eagleson wants his daughter to know the secrets of 9/11.
Her grandpa, he was a hero in the World Trade Center.
And who killed her grandfather. Catherine Herridge, CBS News, Washington.
And there is still much more news ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News. A commercial space company's rocket blows up on its very first launch. And a recognizable January 6th rider enters into a plea deal.
Pain.
Afternoon or an isolated storm, but I think most of us will be dry heading through the day on Sunday into Sunday night. Here's that State Fair forecast now. You know, you had the rain yesterday, wasn't bad today. Boy, things are looking good as we head through the weekend and Labor Day. Clear to partly cloudy, 76 tomorrow, 80 Sunday. mid-80s heading into Monday. So here's that 10-day forecast for you now. Slight chance of a shower in the morning tomorrow in the Sioux Falls area. Then lots of sunshine Sunday into Labor Day. The rest of the 10-day forecast, look at that, clear to partly cloudy with temperatures in the 70s and 80s, and kind of the same.
Was shopping. As soon as he started his stabbing spree, they moved in, killing him in less than 60 seconds.
This man was on a terror watch list for 5 years and he was still able to carry out the attack. It all raises big questions yet again, not just for New Zealand, but all around the world. How can you prevent random attacks even when you know the person is a threat? And how can you do that while preserving civil liberties at the same time? Whit?
James Longman, our thanks to you tonight. Back here at home, a former Georgia prosecutor is facing charges tonight for her handling of the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. Former District Attorney Jackie Johnson is charged with obstruction and violation of duty, accused of directing police not to make an arrest after Arbery's fatal shooting as he was jogging through a neighborhood last year. The murder trial for Travis McMichael, his father Gregory, and William Bryan is set for October. They have pleaded not guilty. When we come back here on World News Tonight, disgraced former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick in court today, and the guilty plea from one of the key suspects in the January 6th Capitol riot.
Certain HPV-related.
He will, and it will come on top of all the other issues that you were referring to this week. And in general, President Biden is facing the consequences of his own actions on Afghanistan. He chose to do it the way that he did. And now we're facing the issue not only of some U.S. citizens apparently still stranded in Afghanistan, we're facing the question of who the U.S. actually did evacuate. More than 100,000 people who may or may not have been vetted very well, getting stories now that the U.S. is kind of trying to find out who it just brought out of Afghanistan. Now, on COVID, the president told us during the campaign that he knew how to handle this. He had a plan, which at the time was just masks and social distancing and waiting for a vaccine. But now that you have the Delta variant, his administration has sowed confusion about the vaccine, and he specifically bungled.
Abortions are dangerous. Nope, none of that is true. This movement of in fact is so full of misinformation that its very origin is also a lie. Back in the 1970s, evangelical Christians were largely apolitical, and religious conservative political activists like Paul Weyrich wanted to change that. Dartmouth historian Randall Balmer, in his oft-cited piece for Politico, wrote, "The hypothetical moral majority needed a catalyst and a standard around which to rally. The galvanizing issue was not abortion. It was, in fact, an organized fight to protect Christian schools from racial integration." Religious leaders blamed President Jimmy Carter for IRS actions at the time that removed tax breaks previously enjoyed by private schools that failed to integrate. And a movement was brewing. But as Balmer notes, defending school segregation wasn't the best look. So evangelical leaders searched for a more palatable rallying cry, which would become abortion. Joining me now is Frank Schaeffer, director and author of several books, including Why I Am an Atheist Who Believes in God.
More than a clean, a cleanse.
Back to the student athletes.
His charges dating back to the 1970s. One of his alleged victims, now in his 60s, appearing in court today. It's the first time a U.S. Cardinal has been criminally charged with abuse. When we come back, news tonight about the so-called QAnon shaman.
I mean, just because his demands, whatever they may be, or see that whole thing go down in flames.
Yeah, so you got progressives saying we're not going to do the bipartisan compromise until we get the $3.5 trillion. Manchin pumping the brakes on that. Bill, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with Charles. Look, I was in the White House when Katrina hit. You know, we had Iraq and all sorts of things. It is the kind of thing when there's bad news, it does seem to come in droves. And also, look, it's not just that the policies have not worked out, especially on Afghanistan. On Afghanistan, the American people watched their president and commander-in-chief tell them falsehoods, you know, about we're going to stay until every last person gets out. So there's a lot of questions about the president's honesty and whether he's up to the job, in addition to whether he...
Severe jawbone problems may happen.
We're saying
this ban on abortions? Is there a way that it is illegal to kind of take the enforcement out of the hands of the government and put it in the hands of citizens? And I really don't know the answer to that. I mean, one issue is it's not enforcement in a criminal sense, it's civil enforcement. They're allowed to sue, and there are areas in which that is allowed to happen in other areas, but it hasn't ever been done in this area of abortion. So what he's saying is all hands on deck. DOJ is going to look into this and see in what ways can this be stopped to save the women of Texas from this constitutional calamity. And, you know, we'll have to see if they come up with anything. It seems like an uphill battle to me.
Because as you point out, President Biden, so many others seem particularly bothered by what they're calling this vigilante aspect of this law. Do you expect that portion of the law could inspire additional challenges?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we know that the extremist anti-abortion movement has been a violent movement for decades now, and the notion that this is just empowering them to go forward and to try to seek out people who are trying to get access to abortion rights and to stop them. I mean, the law says to stop them by suing them, but you know, we all know that isn't the tack that extremists have taken in the past. So I do think it's extremely troubling. I think it will be subject to many legal challenges in the years to come.
And that letter saying thank you meant so much to him. It's an important reminder. We'll be right back.
Tonight's On the Road segment is sponsored by Geico. You could save even more by
every night with Cascade Platinum.
Place to catch fireflies. What if everyone under the sun loved everyone under the sun? Yeah.
So remember, stay positive, be kind, and think Subaru.
Late night laughs.
Rheumatoid arthritis and take it.
The heck, I'll try it. So I did.
Joy.
Who doesn't love Dancing Queen? That is the unmistakable sound of ABBA in a song from their brand new album, the first in almost 40 years. The Swedish pop group became an international sensation in the 1970s with hits like Dancing Queen and Mamma Mia, which is also the title of a smash Broadway musical and movie. In addition to the new album, there will be live concerts featuring holograms or avatars of the group. Seriously, avatars. Don't go anywhere. Another full hour of The Readout starts right after this quick break.
Make this the summer of sand on the problems. Show your world benefits. Find out where.
This is the chance to make a name and etch it in silver next to the greatest.
Nightly News is up next. We will see you in 2 minutes for Dakota News Now at 6 over on KSFY. Good night from Courthouse Square.
In the town of Basic, this is where people ship.
The fall of Jim and Tammy Faye Baker was a huge story.
In the name of Jesus.
They were the Kardashians of the gospel, but had everything.
Sex, religion, money. I don't know how God is going to work this whole thing out.
The 2020 event tonight on ABC.
Finally tonight, America Strong, the first responders on the scene.
From the Gulf Coast to the Northeast, America's first responders answering the call in a week of catastrophic weather events. In New York's Central Park, 2 NYPD officers seen on body camera video wading through waist-deep floodwater to save a stranded driver.
Get your stuff. I'm here. I'll hold you.
In southeastern Pennsylvania, guests at a Marriott hotel being escorted into armored vehicles and flatbed trucks.
The firefighters put heroic efforts in with a line across raging water, and we were incredibly grateful.
And when the Category 4 hurricane battered the Louisiana coast Sunday, first responders, many leaving their own damaged homes behind, rushing in to help stranded families using high water vehicles and boats. In Mississippi, rescuers assisting this woman with a walker get through knee-deep water to safety.
She's in it.
And these brave officers walking directly to a submerged vehicle.
Climb out the window.
I don't think I can.
2 women trapped inside.
Grab one on my shoulders.
Water up to the window. Those officers calmly getting the women out unharmed.
We're on the ground right here. Look, step with me. Okay. Step with me.
Throughout the week, first responders putting their own lives on the line, saving hundreds when the country needed them most.
And we are all truly grateful. Have a great night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Everywhere, they're gone.
Something like this. I thought Katrina was bad. This is the worst one.
We did not know that the heavens would literally open up and bring Niagara Falls level water to the streets of New York.
This is tough stuff. War is hard. It's vicious. It's brutal. It's unforgiving.
They died with their brothers and their sisters right next to them, doing exactly what they all wanted to do.
The war is over, but the heartbreak continues.
The parade of horribles are about to unfold. We're leaving thousands of Afghan allies behind who fought bravely with us.
Do not forget me and my family. At the moment in Afghanistan, it is very hard and horrifying situation.
Couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree.
The White House needs to grow some oranges and get tougher with the Taliban.
Whoa, we clearly need to. Sorry, that was an aggressive bug.
Quite a week. Next week on Special Report, we will speak with the Education Secretary and Surgeon General and take some of your questions. That's coming up Thursday. Coming up on Fox News Sunday, Congressman Michael McCaul and Dr. Ashish.
Realize you don't belong in basic.
Get 0% financing on 13 models.
Tonight, the staggering toll from Ida rising and desperation growing. Deaths climbing to more than 60 after Ida's sweep across the country. New images in the Northeast, homes and businesses exploding in areas swamped by floodwaters. In New Jersey, how residents escaped this wall of water. And in Philadelphia, highways still flooded. On the Gulf Coast, this stunning scene sparking a new investigation. Evacuated nursing home residents packed into a warehouse, some dying. The president viewing the destruction firsthand. Also tonight, the holiday travel crunch raising new COVID super spreader fears, and the stunning report, children now making up 1 in 5 new COVID cases. The chilling video, a vehicle crashing, the carjacker exiting with a long gun and stealing another car. The shootout caught on camera. It all started at a Walmart. Plus the ISIS terror attack inside of a supermarket. 6 injured in a stabbing spree. How the suspect launched the attack despite being under 24/7 police surveillance. And the major disappointment on jobs numbers, with millions on the brink of losing unemployment benefits. Plus, the urgent warning tonight for parents. We'll tell you about the popular baby products linked to several infant deaths.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening, I'm Tom Yamas in for Lester. Tonight, more deaths and more missing. Ida's trail of damage growing deeper. President Biden today surveying hard-hit New Orleans, where Hurricane Ida made landfall as a monster Category 4 storm. Plus, the state's attorney general investigating deaths of nursing home residents packed into this warehouse. Tens of thousands of people still without power as we head into Labor Day weekend. And in the Northeast, this new video showing how a wall of water tore through a basement apartment in New Jersey. Unprecedented flash flooding and tornadoes now responsible for the growing death toll. And a new crisis unfolding. Explosions and fires breaking out in swamped homes and businesses. Gabe Gutierrez leads us off tonight from Manville, New Jersey. And Gabe, we see one of those explosions there right behind you. That building still smoking tonight.
Yeah, Tom, that's right. This building is still smoldering. It used to be a banquet hall, and it exploded during the flooding because of an apparent gas leak. Luckily, no one was inside. But across the Northeast, this storm was much more deadly than in the South. This is the moment Ida's remnants burst through. A terrifying wall of water flooding a basement in New Jersey. Everyone survived, but in New York City, at least 8 people have died in basement apartments. Across the Northeast, the death toll shot up today.
It's terrifying, especially with the kids. You know, it's horrible. Looking at our house like this, it's terrible.
Andres Andrade rode out the storm in Manville, New Jersey with his wife and 2 young kids. As the water rose quickly, they rushed upstairs and had to be rescued. Did you have any idea that the storm would be this intense?
Never thought of this.
Several homes exploded due to apparent gas leaks. Part of this one ended up all the way across the street. It was tough for firefighters to get here because many neighborhoods were underwater. Another explosion captured by a porch camera. Mario Rivera is staying at a shelter after his house burned down. How hard is it to look at this home?
I cannot believe it, because it's something never happened to me.
This was no ordinary flooding. In Philadelphia, some major highways are still impassable. Tonight, tributes are pouring in for Connecticut State Police Sergeant Brian Mole, who died after his cruiser was swept away. In New York City, body camera video shows officers rushing to rescue people during the record-shattering rain in Central Park.
It's quite clear our state and our nation does not have the infrastructure to meet this moment and to meet the future as it relates to these storms, which are more frequent and more intense.
For Megan and Caesar Dahmer in Manville, that intensity blew up their world.
We just thought it was going to be a bad rainstorm, honestly.
The young couple decided to evacuate because of their 4-month-old daughter, Lila. Tonight, they're glad they did.
It's hard. We're going to get through this.
Their starter home may be finished, but in the rubble, a discovery, a picture of Lila.
We thank God every day, and we have family that's here for us.
Gabe, we're glad that family's okay, but we have to ask you, we're hearing more and more about these home explosions tied to the flooding. What exactly is happening inside these homes?
Yes, Tom, many of these areas are not used to major flooding. The water can damage gas lines, triggering leaks, and that's what can lead to these explosions, Tom.
Gabe Gutierrez leading us off tonight, and while the damage is still being assessed in the Northeast, President Biden visited Louisiana today, where Ida first blasted ashore as a Category 4 hurricane. And now the state's attorney general is investigating deaths of nursing home residents who were among the evacuees. Miguel Almaguer is there.
Tonight, President Biden in a neighborhood of what's left in Laplace. This mangled community, a skeleton of what stood here, a ghost of what's gone.
This isn't about being a Democrat or a Republican. We're Americans, and we'll get through this together.
The president flew above cities that are now islands. In Lafitte, houses are only home to heartbreak. Those who could afford to lose the least have lost the most.
This is the elderly community, and look, a lot of them don't have it, don't have the energy, and in this heat, if you could help us, we could use it. We really could use it.
5 days after the storm, these are the lines for the basics. In scorching heat, tens of thousands still don't have power.
Long gas lines, long food lines, long ice lines. I mean, we're trying to get whatever we can get to survive.
With far too many struggling to piece together lives ripped apart, the death toll continues to climb.
I'm just furious that nobody said anything.
Tonight, the Louisiana Attorney General launching an investigation after authorities say more than 800 nursing home patients were cramped into this warehouse, evacuated here to ride out the storm. 4 seniors lost their lives.
If we would have known it would have been a place like this, I would have took her with me. I mean, no matter how hard it would have been.
Families say their loved ones were forced to shelter in squalor for days as health inspectors were turned away and relatives were left in the dark.
It's heartbreaking, the treatment all around. You know, these are still people. These are people who deserve to be handled and treated with respect, with care, not treated like farm animals in a hot warehouse with cots on the floor.
Tonight, the unthinkable after the unimaginable, as millions suffer through Ida's unforgiving wake of misery.
Miguel joins us now from Laplace, Louisiana. And Miguel, I want to stick with this nursing home issue. Those residents, they have been removed from that warehouse. Some have been reunited, but not all of them?
Yeah, Tom, tonight some family members say they are still looking for their loved ones. The Department of Health says they rescued 843 seniors. Some were taken to local hospitals, others to state-run facilities. Tom?
Miguel Almaguer with that new reporting tonight for us. Miguel, thank you. We'll turn now to millions of Americans traveling this Labor Day weekend, bringing with them new concerns of possible super spreader events. It comes as an alarming new report shows children now account for more than 1 in 5 new COVID cases. We get more now from Tom Costello.
From the beaches to Broadway to baseball, street festivals to barbecues, COVID caution is back. More indoor mask requirements and fewer people taking that last summer weekend getaway. By one estimate, at least 10% fewer Americans are going anywhere this weekend compared to pre-pandemic 2019.
But we still need your help to stop the spread of germs and viruses.
Air travelers a bit more cautious.
Why wouldn't you be? It's serious. It's more contagious than the last version. It's reason to be concerned.
In just the last week, more than 7,000 people have died of COVID, most unvaccinated.
Folks are seeing their loved ones get sick, get hospitalized, and God forbid, dying. There is sadly nothing like fear to make someone willing to roll up their sleeve.
With the CDC advising unvaccinated Americans, including kids, not to travel, the TSA reports a steep drop-off in airport passenger traffic this week. On Tuesday, the fewest screening since late May. The Monahan family usually visits Disney World over Labor Day weekend, but they have an unvaccinated 10-year-old.
Then we started watching the numbers, and then we saw what was going on in Florida and how those numbers were getting high. We had our fingers crossed, hoping it was just a spike, but those numbers never came down.
The Monahans decided to put the Disney trip on ice for now. They're not alone. By early August, more than 50% of Americans had canceled or changed their summer travel plans. If your plans are disrupted by COVID or a weather emergency, most airlines continue to waive change fees for all but the cheapest tickets. But for travelers venturing near or far,
Be more wary of our surroundings and how close we are to people.
the pandemic threat is once again top of mind.
New infections are rising fast, but Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Florida have the highest death rates and lowest vaccination rates. Tom?
All right, Tom, thank you for that. That highly contagious Delta variant having a major impact on the economy.
I fear that they will. And to your point, it's not lost on anybody here, but this is not a hurricane that hit New Jersey. This is a hurricane that hit Louisiana, 1,000 miles away. And just the remnants of a storm are causing this much damage in this part of the country. This is about as much damage or more in the communities I represent than we had from the catastrophic Hurricane Sandy some years ago. So that tells you how this increasing intensity of storms is affecting us. And so, good news, we've got an infrastructure bill that's going to add more than $50 billion to our efforts to be more resilient, flood control, stormwater management. The bad news is that we can't just keep building bigger and bigger dikes. We've got to move this country away from fossil fuels to clean energy and to move the world and to lead the world in that direction. Or the engineering we're doing now is going to be useless and outdated 20 years from now.
Well, Congressman, I think we can all agree that no one wants to see these kind of storms become our new normal going forward. Best of luck to you in your repairs. I know you said you were among the lucky ones. Thank you for joining us. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Bianna.
And out front next, more than 800 nursing home residents forced to ride out Hurricane Ida in a warehouse. 4 died, dozens hospitalized. Nurses working in the warehouse are now describing the horrendous conditions they found inside. Plus, Trump was booed for telling supporters to get vaccinated. Now the former president is revealing whether he plans to get a booster shot. And an Afghan who served alongside U.S. troops in Afghanistan, now in the United States. But he had to leave his parents behind. So you didn't even get to say goodbye?
No.
This place that is near and dear to my heart, where we really have that goal of helping all the animals that we can.
Yep, that's ours. She'll bring him around right in front of you guys right here.
Crews flew 90 animals out of the flood zone to make room for stray and injured pets showing up at shelters along the Gulf Coast. Greater Good Charities coordinated the transportation, and Hill's Pet Food paid for the flight.
They'll go to Brookings, they'll go to Yankton, they're going to go to Sioux City. We even have a transport heading up to Watertown and some going to Fargo.
These guys are Hurricane Ida survivors. They were the adoptable pets in their shelters there, just waiting for homes.
It's a little bittersweet.
I'm really excited and humbled that they're entrusting these animals to us, but my heart goes out to the people that are impacted and those that are still there, that are dealing with the hurricane firsthand.
The flood pets saw clouds overhead at the Sioux Falls Airport and sunflowers on the ground. Curry and Adams say sunflower is the perfect name for this operation.
When you think of sunflowers, you think of bright and the future, and they're always looking up.
We want these guys to be looking towards their future, and we are going to help them find that future.
Selma and Jasmine, welcome to South Dakota.
One kitten at a time. In Brookings, Lauren Solik, KELO News.
Oh, so cute. Somebody needs to get that puppy and just hold him.
Should have heard her. Most of the animals have been spayed and neutered and microchipped, so they'll probably be ready for adoption right away. You know, one of the things I was thinking about, those are dogs and cats from Louisiana. They've never seen snow.
Oh, no. Like, another reason to hold that puppy even tighter and maybe buy him a sweater, too. You might even need it tonight, Scott. It's a little chilly.
Tom, you said, you should have heard her. You should have heard you.
I was doing the same thing, yeah.
Very cute animals. Hopefully they do find a forever home. We are watching some showers, thunder showers across parts of western, maybe central South Dakota, and these will continue to move to the east. We do have
national, labeled a national security threat back in 2016.
He was closely watched by surveillance teams.
What happened today was despicable. It was hateful. It was wrong. It was carried out by an individual person who was gripped by ideology that is not supported here.
But it's that ideology that has the world on edge as the 20th anniversary of September 11th, just a week away. The globe watched in horror as the Taliban seized control of Afghanistan, fueling concerns that extremist ideology could be on the rise. Tom?
Terrifying story. All right, Megan, thank you. Back here in the States, former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick in court today. The 91-year-old there to enter a plea after being accused of sexually assaulting a teenager who himself, now an adult, was in court as well. McCarrick is the only U.S. Catholic cardinal ever criminally charged with child sex crimes. NBC's Ann Thompson reports.
Once a prince of the Catholic Church, former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick today is a criminal defendant. Accused of sexually assaulting a teenage boy in suburban Boston in 1974.
Mr. McCarrick, what would you say to the victim?
No comment right now. The only American cardinal, past or present, to face criminal charges for sexually abusing a minor. Leaning on a walker, the 91-year-old said nothing as a court official described the alleged crime that happened during a wedding reception at Wellesley College.
He specifically used the act of confession to get the victim away from his parents and from his siblings, and then would sexually assault the victim during that time frame.
McCarrick's accuser was then 16 years old. A not guilty plea was entered. Hasn't the statute of limitations expired?
No, the statute of limitations is still open because in Massachusetts, if your perpetrator flees to another state, the clock stops.
As the leader of the Washington Archdiocese, McCarrick once had the ear of popes and presidents. But a 2018 investigation found credible that McCarrick abused a New York altar boy in the 70s. And 2 New Jersey dioceses revealed sexual harassment settlements brought by young priests against McCarrick. He was forced to resign as cardinal, then removed as a priest by Pope Francis. Now living in Missouri, McCarrick must stay away from minors and not contact his accuser. The next hearing is October 28th. Tom?
And thank you. Up next, an urgent consumer alert about 2 popular baby products, what parents need to know.
This is Sarah Schulte from Schulte Subaru. We would like to thank our customers and neighbors for their business
and allow us to continue this conversation. Thank you.
Lost hurricane season to just anyone.
Part of a plea deal he made with prosecutors. Chansley gained notoriety after being photographed shirtless inside the Capitol wearing a fur hat with horns. He will be sentenced in November. In New Zealand, a Sri Lankan man inspired by the Islamic State stabbed and injured 6 people at an Auckland supermarket. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said that police were able to kill the assailant about a minute after the attack because security agencies had been monitoring him since 2016.
The detailed reasons he is known to the agencies is the subject of suppression orders made by the court. What I can say is that we have utilised every legal and surveillance power available to us to try and keep people safe from this individual. Many agencies and people were involved, and all were motivated by the same thing, trying to keep people safe.
3 of the stabbing victims were seriously injured. And on Wall Street, stocks turned mostly lower after today's lackluster jobs report. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 75 points to close at 35,369. The Nasdaq rose 32 points, and the S&P 500 slipped a point. Still to come on the NewsHour, a personal reflection from the chaplain who oversaw fallen soldiers' final return home from Afghanistan. Jonathan Capehart and Michael Gerson break down the multiple crises facing President Biden, and keeping the beat, how the music industry plays on in the pandemic.
This is the It's Billion Automotive's last race.
Tossing and turning at night.
How heartless could one be? I don't even understand how that could possibly be a defense.
That's a good question, and a lot of the families of these 800+ nursing home residents are absolutely furious about this. They're demanding answers. They're saying that they want to see Bob Dean prosecuted. They're just totally disgusted by the situation. But I don't know if it should have been that much of a surprise, because when you look back, Bob Dean has been owning nursing homes in Louisiana for decades, and all of them have horrific track records. There are lots of stories about people at his nursing homes dying. There's one, a disabled man who was ignored for a few hours when he was in a whirlpool and he died. Another woman who had ants coming out of her nose and her eyes when a nurse found her. Things like that Bob Dean's nursing homes have gotten in trouble with inspectors for, and yet he's had a license.
Well, hopefully he'll be held to account now that an investigation has been launched. Nobody should have to die this way. Thank you, Andrea, so much for your reporting.
Thank you.
And right now, President Biden is wrapping up his tour of Louisiana, where he vowed his full support for the recovery efforts.
We're in this together, and so we're not going to leave any community behind, rural, city, coastal, inland, and I promise we're going to have your backs till this gets done.
Out front now, Jacqueline Hotard, president of St. John the Baptist Parish.
Sleep on those type of products due to a risk of suffocation. We turn now to our Kids Under Pressure series. Tonight, the growing controversy around race education. Some teachers now choosing to leave schools, others to stay and fight. Here's Antonia Hilton.
Brittany Hogan thought she made it as the highest-ranking black woman in her school district.
But this year, it's turned into a really hostile environment. It's been really hard to focus on what matters, and that's really making sure that the kids are well.
Hogan led diversity and equity programs in the Rockwood School District just outside of St. Louis. But last spring, in the midst of the American uprising over George Floyd's murder, parents accused Hogan of pushing critical race theory.
Does the district teach critical race theory? No, Rockwood does not teach critical race theory.
It's a decades-old study on systemic racism, almost exclusively taught in law school.
I feel this is culturally sanctioned discrimination.
The resistance got so severe, the district hired private security.
Being told that my work is ungodly and immoral, questioning my credentials, questioning my ability to be here and to do this work, calling me a liar, saying I'm racist against white people, screenshots that were being sent to me consistently. It looked like a lot of just mean, very hurtful things.
Hogan decided to leave her dream job.
It was heartbreaking. It was giving up the work that I really loved.
Dr. Terry Harris was Hogan's boss, and he made a different choice, to stay and fight in this district that serves 22,000 children and is 75% white.
Was part of you staying on because you just don't want them to win?
Because if I leave, then I'm not advocating for all students anymore.
So do you believe that a reconciliation is possible?
100%. I think that we can restore this. Someone has to believe that their education is going to be effective, is going to be fair and just.
Parents who called for Hogan and Dr. Harris's firing declined NBC News' request for an interview. Rockwood's administrators make the curriculum public online and have repeatedly told parents they don't teach critical race theory. Black parents are worried as a new year starts without Hogan.
I'm the only black person in my class. They are running her away because she was only doing her job.
Is there something to be said for fighting the good fight?
I'm still fighting the good fight. Making the decision was really a choice of choosing myself, but also knowing that I'm still committed to the work, that I'm still committed to being a person who talks about race and equity. It doesn't stop just because I left Rockwood.
Antonia Hilton, NBC News, Rockwood, Missouri.
We thank Antonia for that, and if that story moved you, you can catch much more on the clash over race and the classroom on Monday with a new episode of the NBC original podcast, Southlake. And when we come back, we'll show you one incredible rescue highlighting the bravery this week. From the Northeast to Louisiana, it's inspiring America. Stay with us.
29% from a year ago. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
It's a Friday night on the eve of a long holiday weekend, so what is in store weather-wise? Phil has a final check of the forecast when we come back.
A severe thunder.
Higher risk. The real question going forward is if these 7 million odd people lose their unemployment benefits, what does that mean for their families and what does that mean for the overall economy? If in fact the benefits are keeping them afloat but not majorly weighing on their decision to take a job or to not take a job, what could happen is their spending power just goes down. And if their spending power goes down, that means they have less money available to spend in their local economy, which could in turn have these knock-on effects that make it harder for local employers to hire. So it's a little hard to disentangle, what the macro effects of this will be, but it will certainly cause a lot of hardship for many families. And I should mention, by the way, that there have been attempts to look at whether the states that already ended these expanded federal unemployment benefits early, whether they have had any appreciably higher job growth than the states that decided to keep them around through next week in any event. And so far, it seems like there's not much of an effect either way.
All right, Catherine Rampell, special correspondent for the NewsHour and at the Washington Post. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Last Sunday, President Biden flew to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware to witness the return, or as it's formally titled, the repatriation of American service members killed in Afghanistan. And as it has for the past 20 years, the air base hosted what the military calls dignified transfers. They are solemn, quiet rituals led by Dover's chaplains, one of whom has witnessed the human cost of the war from its very first day in 2001, all the way to last weekend. Nick Schifrin spoke to him before the U.S. troop withdrawal about sacrifice and families' grief.
In the last 20 years, more than 7,000 American men and women have died in Afghanistan, Iraq, and fighting the global war on terror. Nearly all of them are flown home through Dover Air Force Base. Throughout, there's been one chaplain at Dover, Minister David Sparks. David Sparks, welcome to the NewsHour.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. How do you measure the sacrifice of the last 20 years?
It's a sacrifice that goes on forever for the families who have lost their loved one, whether that's their son or daughter or parent. I have said to thousands of family members, we thank you for and honor the sacrifice of your son or daughter, but we also honor your sacrifice, which goes on forever. Mostly at the point at which I am conveying that to them, they don't say anything. They listen intently, and by and large, they're somewhere between tears and sobbing.
Do you try and comfort them?
Depending on what that means, of course. Of course, but it's not usually very verbal. At the moment of the dignified transfer, when they have just seen their loved one come across the tarmac covered by a flag, there aren't many words that are comforting. Mostly It is the care that is being given by this chaplain and by others, so many others that are involved in that, and they see that and feel that there is a team that carries their loved one off of the plane into our transfer vehicle, and after they are complete with that transfer, they stand at attention and they will not move until the family has left the flight line. And many, many times the family turns around in our vehicle to look out the back to see those people still standing at attention. Now this is going to make me emotional. Standing at attention over there and holding that, and they will often comment on that.
You have had to deal with this so many times. You've had to be the only one speaking often at these dignified transfers so many times. What do you say about these people who have had to come home after the ultimate sacrifice?
I try to say something significant in the prayer to challenge the folks who are there in that dignified transfer to live up to the core values of the service, to live up to their own core values, to live a life that is honoring of those who have given their lives in order that we can do what we do. And then I almost always pray for peace.
Why has it been important for you to say something different every time?
Because every military member and their families, for me, are due the honor of not just a rote. I mean, I can pray a rote prayer. I can memorize one that I pray every time. And I know there are some chaplains who do that, and that's fine. But it's important to me that I give that personal touch to everyone. Though I would confess that after 3,000, 4,000, there are only so many words that can be used.
Do you think over the years that you've said the right things?
I am aware that this is very spiritual. I am aware that there have been multiple times when, well, I did not have the preparation for a particular moment, when words came up out of me that were not my own. Does that make any sense?
Of course.
That were not my own, and I said them. And once in a while, it was for the first time. I heard it the first time when it came around in my own ear, and where in the world did that come from? And those are very holy moments for me. Yeah.
Let's talk about you for a few minutes. You were first at Dover in 1980.
Oh yeah.
You left for a little while.
I was a kid.
You left for a little while and you came back before 9/11. And what happened on 9/11 at Dover for you?
I was a reservist, and I had been called to Dover multiple times, and I had regular duty. The first dignified transfers after 9/11 were the remains that were coming from the Pentagon. And I do not remember words, but I remember that the helicopters were coming from the Pentagon 3 and 4 at a time, every day or multiple times every day. It was pretty well overwhelming. And at that time, they sent the chaplain up onto the helicopter on the ramp at the back, and there was nobody else up there. That was just me. Sound is a great trigger, so I never hear I never hear a helicopter come over that I don't flash back to those helicopters that came in 3, 4, 5 at a time. Yeah.
And that was 20 years ago. You've since retired from active reservists. You were back at this job that we've been talking about as a civilian, and you've been at it since. Why? Why have you stayed this long?
This turned out to be the right thing at the right time, at the right place for me, for my personality, for the training that I had received in many other ways, the fulfillment of doing what I have done at Dover has been has been very real for me. Families are embedded in my heart. I like to ask, how did you meet? And they get to talk about their loved one. What was it about him or her that drew you to her the first time? And smiles in the midst of their loss, and they tell these wonderful stories. And for those of us who are in the grief and loss field all the time, we recognize that the number one need for a family is to remember their loved one, even though that causes tears. And they suffer with that. But the number one need, after accepting that in fact there's been a death, is to be able to remember well their loved one and tell those stories. It's a part of the important part of the grief process that is going to go on, as I said earlier. It's going to go on forever.
Chaplain David Sparks, it's a real pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Loved being here.
When the remains of the 13 American service members killed at the Kabul airport were repatriated last Sunday, Chaplain David Sparks was there for perhaps the last dignified transfer of the United States war in Afghanistan. As Americans continue.
Bliss. Rising Crust is fresh baked deliciousness. There's a 5-star pizza.
Voting is going to be very important, as it always is. Gloria, great job. Nice seeing you again. Thank you very much for joining me tonight.
People see. Some meds for mental movement.
He sent on a federal mission.
I'd like to solve